Think about the last time that you had to hire somebody. Now be honest with me. Did it feel intentional or did it feel like you were scrambling? So here's something that most of us rarely admit out loud. We say people are our greatest asset, but we hire them like it's a side gig or something. So we have no systems in place. We have no structure that we use. There's absolutely no repeatable process because it doesn't happen a lot. And we just hope. Urgency, and then we cross our fingers. You can't build a high-performance team with a hobby-level hiring process. And today, in this episode, we're going to break down exactly how to change that. Hey everyone, John here. Welcome to the Leaders Leading Leaders podcast. If you are looking to up your game, if your goal is to hire the best people and retain those folks, you're in the right place. Today, we're going to talk about why most of us default to this, what I'm going to call hobby hiring. Number two, we're going to talk about the organizational cost of inconsistent hiring because we're talking about money here. And then three, I'm going to give you a simple but powerful hiring operating system that you can implement immediately. So as we get into the content today, remember, great teams, they aren't built through great interviews. They're built through great systems. So we need to treat hiring like it's a long-term investment because when we don't, it creates long-term turnover, misalignment, and it just creates a lot of stability within our organizations and our businesses that's unneeded. So let's talk about what does this hobby hiring look like? Because a lot of times what I find, I walk into an organization or somebody calls me up and says, hey, John, I'm having trouble hiring. I got a lot of turnover. Maybe it's a sales position. I see this, or a call center, or somewhere where there's just not a lot of incentive to stick around. But this could apply to somebody out there that's looking for a job and has had trouble finding the right fit. So you can even take what I'm about to explain in this episode and say, okay, what do I need to do in my next job interview or when I apply to whatever job that you may be interested in? But for the most part, what hobby hiring is, we don't hire a lot of times. It's something that comes up very sporadically. So normally when we hire is when somebody leaves. We probably only have a set number of positions, or maybe we're doing it seasonally. It's that season where you see a lot of folks coming in just because of the surge and you're trying to prepare for people coming in. So you're going to do a lot of hiring. And when we only do it once in a blue moon, what that does is we got to remember, we got to dust off all of our hiring manuals to remember how we brought in the next person. So that's the first thing. The other thing that hobby hiring looks like is when we think we're good interviewers. I'll be the first one to admit that I'm probably not the best interviewer. I see the good in everybody. I want to, score them highly. I want them to do well. And we rely on the fact that I know when I'm going to hire a good person, I can just tell. It's like intuition. It's like a gut feeling. Or maybe that individual is very charismatic. Maybe they blew the interview out of the water. I'm telling you, I've hired some people that interview very, very well and then are a dud. And if you've been there, you know how frustrating that can be because you're like, man, I didn't get it wrong. I know I saw them answer all these questions. They had a lot of energy, and that's just not the same person who's showing up day after day. The other piece is that we underestimate how to define the role. And where I'm going here is our businesses change. They evolve. Skills that somebody needed to work in your business or work on your team probably aren't the same that they are today, or that you need to move your business, your organization into the future. I ran into this pretty recently where I had an old job description. I was needing to post a job and I needed to get it out pretty quick. Why? Because somebody retired. And I was looking at the job description and I was like, man, some of this stuff on here, I had old systems or applications that I wanted experience in. We weren't doing a lot of the manual reporting that was in the job description. A lot of that we had automated. A lot of it we had been dashboarding. So you can kind of see where I'm going here. But if you dust off that old job description for the position you're hiring and there's outdated applications in there or there's outdated processes in there, that's when we need to sit down and really say, okay, who do we need and how is that going to help us moving forward? And we're going to get into some specific examples and applications as always, because I always want to give you guys practical applications. I'm just not here to say, this is what it looks like. Good luck. So stick with me. The next one, a lot of times the hiring process itself is scattered among emails, calendaring. If you got a third party that's doing your hiring, like a temp agency that you're just bringing in somebody, you're depending on them to find you the right person, but it's scattered. It's scattered across everywhere. You're getting emails maybe from the resumes, then you're trying to schedule interviews on your calendaring process, and it can be very frustrating, especially again, if we go back to we only doing it every once in a while, or maybe that one time of year, and we dread it, okay? Hey everyone, a quick break in the episode today. Are you struggling to find and keep the right employees? You're not alone. High turnover drains time, money, and morale, leaving us frustrated, overwhelmed, and feeling like we have to settle for less. I understand how tough hiring can be because I've lived it. And with over 21 years of building high-performance teams, I know how to turn hiring challenges into lasting employee success. Through my proven lead framework, we're going to analyze your processes, design a personalized strategy, and implement solutions that create confident and long-term results. Don't let turnover hold you back. Choosing this program is that first step towards a thriving workplace. Enroll today at thejohnespinosa.com and build the team you deserve. Imagine a team that works seamlessly together or keep facing the same costly cycle of turnover. The choice is yours. Now back to our episode. And then last but not least, we confuse speed with efficiency. So here we hire fast and it becomes fast regret. Back to the scenario where I said, the individual blew the interview out of the water. They answered all the questions. They were very energetic. They knew a lot about the business, and I thought I was making the right selection. About 3 weeks later, I was pretty frustrated with myself. I was pretty frustrated with the fact that I allowed myself not to see or not to ask questions. Again, we blame ourselves, but all along all those 3-4 weeks, that individual, I spent a lot of time onboarding them. That's money. And good for us that we were able to say, hey, listen, this isn't the right spot for you. I'll help find you somewhere, but I don't think this is the right fit, because it was turning into one of those toxic cultures where the individual was complaining, talking about that, that the last job that they were making more money. And it was going south pretty quick. So what I'm trying to say is when we run our hiring process like it's a hobby, these things creep up. And when you're hiring, I think this is probably the one thing that sticks with me. Anytime I start a hiring process, I always ask myself, okay, John, what's the cost that this process is going to be? Because in the end, I'm taking away maybe people on the hiring panel to look at applications, or I'm taking my time as the business owner, as the leader. So there is a cost associated. And that's the next thing I want to talk about. Before we get into there, though, if you are listening to this podcast, do me a favor, click on that subscribe button. It's free. Just do it. It doesn't take a lot of time. Find it on your screen, whatever platform that you're listening. Click on that subscribe button. Click on the follow button and share the episode. If you know somebody that sucks at hiring, share the episode with them. One, it's going to help them hire better. Maybe you're working for that organization. And two, it's going to increase our ability to work with the best people and build those high performance teams. So let's talk about what the cost looks like here. The cost, when we attract wrong candidates to our hire postings or our job postings or, however we're hiring, whatever that looks like, the funnel into our organization, and our job postings, they don't have clarity. So we're working from an outdated job description, or maybe this is the really bad part. We just copy and paste. So we got an old job posting out there. Maybe we're using a system like a Monster or Indeed or whatever your hiring system is. And all you do is just turn that posting that you hired a year ago back on without even looking at it. You're in a hurry. Don't worry. We'll get people and I'll weed through them. How many times have you said that? I've been guilty of that. So if we don't have a posting that says you're going to have to work. You're going to have to work at one applying to this job posting. I don't need just your name, address, and phone number, right? I want to know those specific skills that tie into the job. And one of the things that, this prevents if we get detailed is somebody who is just looking to pencil whip a job application is not going to spend the time. It reminds me of when I was applying for college. And, I wanted to go to these Ivy League colleges. I would look at their applications and there was a lot of essays involved. You got to hit like 5 or 6 different referrals from professors and, people that you've worked with. It was hard. Why? Why is the application process so stringent to get into those Ivy League colleges? Because they want the right candidate applying. That's what your job posting should look like. It should be, I got 100 candidates. No, that's not what we're trying to do here. We're trying to get the right candidates so that way you don't have to spend so much time in the interview process or the application review process. You know that if somebody took the time to apply for your job, that they're serious about it. So that's the first one. The second cost is inconsistent decisions. So every interview begins to feel different. Every hire just feels like it's a random hire. And when we talk about these inconsistent decisions, that's a big part. Back to my example, 3 to 4 weeks, that's a cost. Every time that you have to backfill behind somebody, it's 1.5 times that salary. And I would even argue it's probably 2 to 3 times that individual's salary. Because if you're getting involved, onboarding, you're taking the time, if you're a very small organization or a very small team, or you ask somebody to sit on an interview panel for you or review packages, now that cost begins to go up. The third cost that probably is the most detrimental to your organization is the long-term turnover. And what I mean here is you get mismatched expectations. So you come in the door, they're great for the first week, and then the second week they start showing up late, or there's delays in their work products. Whatever that looks like, those mismatched expectations, that is going to create long-term turnover. And then this disengagement creates early exits. So again, the long-term turnover piece, that is a big cost to your organization. So things that you need to look for, I want to explain this to you and the importance of treating your hiring process like a hobby, but these are real costs. When you look at attracting the wrong candidate, you just got a huge pool of people coming in. You're making inconsistent decisions with your hiring, with your interviewing questions, and you're creating really a culture of long-term turnover where it's a revolving door. That sucks cost out of your operating budget, and it sucks time and energy away from you. So, John, how do you break free from hobby hiring? 4 steps. Write these down. Get out your pens and pencils. Again, I want this to be a very interactive podcast, not just a bunch of philosophy. And here's the practical model that you are going to need to turn around your hiring process. So first, role clarity. We are going to define, right, what great looks like. What does a great employee look like? Questions here. What problem will the role solve? So if you got a marketing problem, you probably need someone that's good in marketing. If you got someone that needs to run your social media account, you probably don't want to hire somebody that's not on social media, right? So what problem does this role solve? What skills are non-negotiable? What are things that you aren't just going to let pass by? And what I mean here is like communication skills, or if they need to work in specific applications and they don't have that background, they need maybe a creative suite, experience. Those are the things that you are going to define in this role clarity. And then what behaviors align with your culture? There's a lot of good interview questions. You can Google them, you can chat GPT them around their behavioral questions. So conflict. How do you deal with somebody who you disagree with? What if a customer treats you in a bad way? How do you react to that? There's a lot of different questions that you can ask to gauge whether their behavior matches your culture. So that's the first one, role clarity. The second one, what's your recruiting structure? And here we're going to build a consistent process. Okay? So we need a job posting template. Now that template needs to be something, if you got multiple positions, I've worked with an organization that they had about a team of 10, but 5 of them probably did the same thing. They did do the same thing as far as customer service. They were the face, but the other 5, they were IT, they were administrative, they were maybe an advisor or an assistant. You had somebody who did payroll and budget, that sort of thing. So you needed very specific job postings for each one of those. Now, luckily, they had very standard operating procedures. So we took those operating procedures and we just put them into job posting templates. So if any one of those individuals walked out the door, it was easy to pick that up off the shelf, make some tweaks, and then go out with posting. The other thing is your screening criteria. So what are you going to use to screen applicants? If you got need a resume and need 3 letters of reference, or you have a skills test that you're going to do, what is that criteria look like to screen your applicants? And then interviews and scoring tools. Your interview, people just go into an interview without preparing questions. And I think that's a flaw. That's a mistake that you are making if you go into an interview and at least don't treat it like an assessment. Because during that interview, remember what I said earlier, we think that we're the best interviewers and we just go in there and we shoot from the hip and we ask them questions. It's very random. And then we wonder why they didn't turn out. Well, it's because we didn't have a consistent interview process. So you may have an initial interview that just runs them in to kind of do a culture fit, right? And then the second interview now is where you're digging a little bit deeper into the skills assessment. Do they have the skills that match the role that you're hiring for, right? And then the third one, you could even bring in maybe somebody from the team that they're going to be working on and kind of just have that conversation with them. But you got to have a process that pertains to your interview. And that's what I'm talking about when I'm explaining this recruiting structure. You're going to build that consistent process. It starts with the job posting and goes all the way through to the interview process. The third one, what's your selection rhythm? So here, how do you make decisions, and are they aligned with the culture, your mission, and vision of the organization? One thing that I always ask people is, does this candidate meet your standards? Now, if you just say yes, or maybe say maybe, that's a no. Because I'm going to ask you why. How have they exhibited in their past, whether through an interview answer response or on their resume, that their behaviors match your culture? The other one, Do they fit the role, not just the moment? Remember, you're hiring probably because somebody has left. And so you're down a person. If you got a small organization, that could be a lot of work that's not getting done or getting pushed onto other people's plates. So I can understand you want to get somebody hired quick, but do they fit the role that you need them to fit? Remember, back up to role clarity. We've defined the role there. Or are you just hiring for the moment, just to get a warm body in the seat and pick up the phone and be able to answer it? When down on the line, if that administrative person is picking up the phone on a bad day and treating your customers rudely or short, that cost you. So remember, selection rhythm. And the last one, are we hiring emotionally or are we hiring strategically? So here, are you hiring somebody because you like them? Are you hiring somebody because, they're friends of a friend and they told you that they were good at what they did in their last business? Or are you hiring strategically? Are you making sure that you've defined that role, the skills that you're going to need moving forward, and you're making an objective decision, not subjective, not based on emotion, but going back to that scoring criteria? How are you scoring them? If you're not running the interview, what criteria do you have in place to get the right person in front of you to maybe make the final decision on whether to hire them? So that's the selection rhythm. And the fourth thing we're going to do, and we've talked about this, we had an episode on it, onboarding. Onboarding, the 30, 60, 90-day path is going to be your key to onboard those individuals. Don't step away too early. Make sure that they understand the culture. Make sure they're integrating into the culture. All the things that we talked about in this episode or that episode, I would recommend that you go take a look at that, because that onboarding procedure, it's outside of hiring, it's probably your second most costly, if you get it wrong, process in your whole entire business. So you're going to want to make sure that at 30, 60, 90 days, by 90 days, they're in your culture. They know what to expect. They know your expectations. And now we're just training them up. We're just getting them the professional development training. We're getting them those extra skills training. And we're making sure that they're the best possible employee because they have the skills to do the job that you need them to do. So one thing I want to leave everybody with today is we can't build a championship team with a hobby level hiring process. We need repeatability, we need structure, and we need that clarity. The same way we run our businesses. I don't run my businesses just randomly selecting processes or products. So you must run your recruitment. 3 things we talked about today. Leaders fall into hobby hiring because they react. They don't plan. Inconsistency, that will create that turnover, the misalignment, and the frustration. And a simple hiring operating system, the 30, 60, 90-day plan, it's going to protect our culture and our performance. So hope isn't a hiring strategy, but clarity is. If you're done guessing your way through hiring and want a proven structured process that attracts the right people and keeps them, you're going to want to check out our programs. Let's turn your hiring hobby into a hiring engine. I believe in you. Go be great. Talk to everyone on the next episode.